Jonathan, I wanted to ask you about the causes of stress on a business and whether those causes could kind of explain if a business needs a balance sheet restructuring rather than an operational restructuring, and maybe if you get a quick, short summary of what each of those things mean.
First of all, balance sheet restructuring versus operational restructuring. Balance sheet restructuring, stated simply, means that EBITDA doesn't have to be the measure, but speaking in shorthand, on an EBITDA basis, the company is just fine. The machinery works. I don't mean like actual machinery, but the company, without regard to having to pay interest on debt, and that's really the key, is it makes money and it produces a good or a service that people actually want, and management is good, but there is an overhang because there is simply too much debt on the balance sheet. And so after taking into account the need to spend cash paying interest on the debt, it doesn't work. It's no good. And that would be a pure balance sheet restructuring. An operational restructuring is, as one would, probably guess, it's worse in some ways because you don't even get to, even without regard to the debt service, there's something wrong with the company. The company's having problems at an operational level, thus the term operational restructuring. And there's a host of things that could mean. When Ford was making, his first cars, the whip and buggy manufacturers, could have undergone an operational restructuring to retool. So instead of making buggies, maybe they could have gone into the car business. That would be an example of an operational restructuring. Maybe some management is just not the right management. That would be an example of an operational fix that would be part of, an operational restructuring. In real life, they're not usually one or the other. Oh, another random example, you have a retail chain that has a number of leases that are just stores that are just not profitable, so you'd like to get rid of some of those leases. I put that in the category of an operational issue. But as I was saying, in real life, it's not one or the other. They usually kind of go in tandem. And even if operations are pretty good, if you're doing a balance sheet restructuring, certainly if you're doing it inside of an 11, there's almost always some ways you can improve operations using the tools of an 11. For example, going back to a retailer, maybe the bank debt is way too high, thus requiring a balance sheet restructuring. And while you're at it anyway, if you're inside of a BK, you probably want to use your rejection powers under the bankruptcy code to get rid of underperforming leases.